Chapter 15. In it for the kill.
"Welcome to fight registration," Heidi said in her smooth accent. "Are you both here to fight?"
Just me, Anthony answered. Without further formalities, Heidi launched into a series of questions.
"How many rounds would you like in your fight this evening?"
3.
"And what length?"
5 minutes each.
"Single combatant or multiple attackers?"
I'm a one-on-one kind of guy, Anthony grinned.
"Good to know. Do you have specific opponent demographics in mind? Gender, age, ethnicity, income, religious affiliation?"
Affirmative, male 32, German, upper middle class, Lutheran.
"What about your opponent's psychographics?"
A fan of ABBA.
"Noted. What fighting class would you prefer?"
Heavyweight. Marcus was shocked by how quickly Anthony's answers were coming. There was no hesitation. The Q&A with Heidi continued for a few more minutes, but Marcus was distracted by the fact Anthony was anything but a heavyweight.
"Last question. Would you like to fight to submission or death?"
Death, Anthony said with conviction. Marcus's stomach dropped harder than before. What? Anthony, this is ridiculous. Shh. Anthony silenced him with a piercing glance. What are these questions for? Marcus asked.
"Once I know your brother's preferences, I can find him an opponent."
Then what? Marcus probed.
"Once a match is made, I notify each fighter of their ratio, which is a measure of the predicted physical advantage or disadvantage each faces in the match. Then they have 15 minutes to confirm."
What if he refuses?
"If either fighter declines, or if time passes before both confirm, the match dissolves, and I try to find your brother another fight."
What stops fighters from hanging outside registration and figuring out each other's ratios? Marcus inquired.
"Beyond the circle you're standing in," Heidi motioned toward the floor, "no one else can see or hear you. To them, you're an imperceptible, muted blur."
Like the cone of silence? Anthony laughed.
"Exactly,"
Heidi replied before turning back to Marcus.
"Does that answer your question?"
"But whatever fight you find for him right now, it'll be to the death?"
"It can be. Though it's more common for fighters to show mercy in victory, actual death happens much less than you might expect."
Heidi's clarification didn't make Marcus feel better.
"Well, gentlemen, I have everything I need. I'll come find you when I have a fight."
A door adjacent to fight registration took them back to the rooftop club. People were laughing, smiling, and patiently waiting for violence to erupt. Anthony found a couch overlooking the fight floor and settled in, completely calm. He was named after their father's favorite Roman, Mark Antony, because he was a survivor. When Marcus was born 19 years later, their father thought it'd be hilarious to complete the homage. Their shared name proved an apt omen of the brothers' bond. Raised to believe nothing came before family. "Why'd you answer heavyweight?" Marcus asked. "Trust me." "And death? Are you short on faith today or what? I told you, I've got a plan." Anthony smiled. Marcus knew he was manipulating something. This was the same smile he had when convincing a teenage Marcus to approach random people's houses for food. If the homeowner questioned anything, he'd say it was for a scavenger hunt and ask for an unrelated second item, usually a coin from before World War II. But this wasn't a middle-class neighborhood full of good Samaritans. The house were pros at spotting scams. They didn't have to wait long before Heidi appeared, sitting beside Marcus to face Anthony.
"I have a fight for you. Your ratio is 2, so whatever you think you're capable of, I predict you'll have to work twice as hard to win. Would you like time?"
"I accept," said Anthony. "I'll place 10 million on myself." This was another way the Pomerium divided worlds. Here, fighters could be beneficiaries of their own athletic efforts.
"Fantastic, gentlemen. I'll only return if the fight has been dissolved and I find another match for you. Before I go, there's one last detail to sort out. Would you like to fix your bet, or let it float?"
Float. For someone who'd never fought here, Anthony was sure familiar with every part of this process.
"Fantastic. If I don't see you again, best of luck."
Once Heidi disappeared, Marcus renewed his inquisition. "What does it mean to float? My bet is benchmarked to whatever ratio the betting house comes up with, and not the 2-to-1 Heidi predicted, assuming the fight happens. The house only sees confirmed fights." "I don't understand the difference." "The ratio Heidi calculated is based on her own assessment, but once the fight is public, the people at the house see the details about the fighters. Then they determine their ratio. Fixing means I take Heidi's ratio. Floating means I take what the house offers." "I'm pretty disappointed, though." "Why?" Marcus asked. "I was expecting a 7 from Heidi." Anthony leaned forward before continuing. "I've been moneyballing this place, and the reigning champ, Zed, He's been undefeated for the last 13 months, and I've been mining him for data the entire time. That's why I entered heavyweight. That's why I said ABBA and death. It's also why we came on a Wednesday night. Those factors are predictive of Zed. I entered them to maximize my chances of fighting him.
Marcus retrieved his memento mori and fiddled with it before asking the obvious. Why would you want to fight him? Especially for your first fight.
First public fight, there's a big difference, Anthony replied. I didn't just study Zed, I had to learn the whole registration process too, especially how answering questions in different ways determined what other questions would be asked.
How'd you do that when you can't listen to anyone else's registration?
I paid people to fight. At first they reported back with the questions she asked. Then I had them answer in specific ways to see if new questions were proposed. Finally, I figured out how each answer correlated with fights Heidi offered, and with fights that happened. It sounds harder than it was.
Where'd you find people to pay to fight?
The first few were guys I knew, but once word got out about my sponsorship, fighters flocked to me. A lot of them work with me and want to fight. Getting paid for it was a bonus in their eyes.
Marcus was impressed, even for Anthony. But you don't think it worked since your ratio was lower?
We'll see. In a few minutes, we'll see.
Anthony laid his head back on the couch and closed his eyes. Si vis pacem para bellum. Anthony's legs weren't incessantly bouncing like usual, which meant he was either nervous or in a true state of pre-fight nirvana, thought Marcus. Anthony had never lost at anything in all his life. Or at least that's how it seemed. But the threat of losing was greater than zero since Anthony was fighting someone significantly larger who ruled undefeated on the world's toughest fight circuit. When Nerio erupted in exultation, it was clear Anthony's cleverness paid off. Hovering over the fight floor was the terse notice, Zed versus Anthony. The ratio against Anthony climbed, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, then rapidly accelerated onward. Both combatants had 5 minutes to report to the fight floor, which was now awash with the highlights of the champ's past battles playing in perfect three-dimensional detail. A holographic panel, led by commentator and comedic podcaster Joe Rogan, skewered Anthony for pulling another publicity stunt.
"Who are they?"
Marcus shouted over the noise.
"The Peanut Gallery. Expert voices from the betting house. I have to change," Anthony roared.
Each corner of the roof's trapezoidal shape functioned as a private lounge, utilizing the same cloaking trick as Heidi's registration booth. Only fighters could enter these lounges, with the southern one strictly reserved for the reigning champion. Marcus stood alone in the club. The city's glitter matched the shimmer of the stars above, amplifying Nerio's supernatural feel. The beauty of the crowd was well above average, but one unmasked woman monopolized his gaze. She was orbited by people vying for attention but stood apart, confident and proud, with high cheekbones, sun-kissed skin, long black hair, and hourglass curves screaming of seduction. She caught him staring, and stared straight back with her deep green eyes. Marcus was startled by Anthony's hand on his shoulder.
"I'm supposed to be the nervous one."
Anthony was barefoot and shirtless, wearing only gym shorts.
"Are you, anxious?"
Marcus deflected.
"A little. What matters is channeling it into a win."
Nerio reached new hysteria as Zed emerged from his lounge. Anthony shouted over the champ's fight song,
"Is it just me or is Zed a gay name?"
Anthony spoke without his filter, but it was the kind of name an end-of-level boss from Lethal Enforcers would have. As the champ walked confidently onto the fight floor, his title seemed fitting. Zed was a monster. He paced along the blue circle while stats hovering above his head gave Marcus's fear numerical support. He was 86 pounds heavier and 9 inches taller than Anthony. The fight would be 3 5-minute rounds, though no one had made it past the second against him. Despite being pure violence, many rituals and ceremonies surround fighting, include playing each contender's fight song. As Zed's music faded, it was Anthony's turn to shine. The silence of the club was broken by Tip Your Bartender, his favorite Glassjaw song. Hearing the heavy guitar accompanied by red-hot vocals gave Marcus chills. Anthony said if he ever charged into war, this would be his soundtrack. Now Marcus understood why. It was raw power, like having his knees scraped to the bone by a cheese grater. When a fight starts, no one sits. It's too intoxicating. Everything you know as a logical person tells you fighting is a waste, that it's causing suffering and physical damage, but it's impossible to look away. People compare it to watching a train wreck, though it's much more hypnotizing since it involves humans. Marcus was captivated by the violence about to unfold.
The Romans had taken it to another level with their arenas, and before the Federation arrived, Hollywood had gone even further by mastering realism through illusion. Violence was a constant across cultures and generations. Humanity needed it, and this crowd was no exception. Everyone stood silently, waiting for the carnage to commence. As soon as they touched hands, Zed rushed at Anthony, unleashing a volley of strikes to the head. These movements were matched by an explosion of sound and light in the club, fed by the crowd's energy. Unlike the graceful fights of pop culture, real fights happen in chaotic bursts, because fighting is exhausting. Strikes don't come in constant fluid arcs. They explode from unexpected angles. Marcus watched helplessly as Anthony fell back, covering his head to absorb the strikes with his arms. Zed broke off the assault and stepped back to catch his breath. Anthony retaliated by attempting a kick at the champ's groin. He'd transformed, like flipping on a switch, pacing with the confidence of a lion. But it was such a physical reach that Zed easily redirected, absorbed, or blocked everything. Anthony kept up the pressure, striking at the champ's legs and denying him even a moment of rest. The first round ended without Anthony making a meaningful hit, but he was still standing. As he approached the edge of the fight floor, blood was streaming down his face. Head wounds bleed a lot, but if you're able to hold a conversation, then it's just an inconvenience. Anthony smiled. The whites of his teeth contrasted with the blood filling his mouth. Before you say anything, wait one more round. Then you can tell me whatever's on your mind. 1 round, okay?
1 round, Marcus reluctantly agreed. There was nowhere to sit, so Anthony drank water while waiting on the sideline and spat blood before heading back out. He rolled his neck and flexed all the muscles of his upper body, drawing Marcus's attention to his brother's back tattoo. From a distance, the text outline of the heroic code resembled a bird of war, similar in spirit to the aquila, the Roman battle symbol. As the opponents tapped hands again, Zed repeated his earlier tactic, rushing on Anthony, but this time the fight went to the floor. Anthony crunched his entire upper body, tucked his chin into his chest, and brought his hands to his face to protect what mattered. Zed held nothing back, striking at Anthony's head, ribs, and abdomen until he managed to roll out from under the champ, pushing himself up and away from the ground fight. The intensity of the audience dipped as the fighters stood apart, facing one another. Zed charged at Anthony with a flying cross punch, nicknamed the Superman for its gravity-defying brutality. As he made contact, the energy of the spectators shook the entire club. Anthony responded with a kick to Zed's head, his first solid strike so far, but the champ countered with a front kick to Anthony's chest, sending him across the ring to collide with an invisible rope surrounding the fight floor. The club surged in waves of noise and light as Anthony tried to run out the clock, constantly moving while throwing a rapid series of low kicks to the outside of the champ's legs in an attempt to exploit a weakness of the human body, a large nerve running up the outside of the thigh. Zed responded, turning his threatened leg out each time to absorb the strike with his shins. It wasn't an optimal outcome, but it was better than letting the nerve get crushed. Zed's size was becoming a liability, and Anthony was moving at twice his speed. With each strike to the legs, he made it harder for the champ to keep up and counterstrike. Zed was noticeably fatigued as the second round ended. Anthony gasped for air. What happens next? It's uncharted territory. Congrats, if your plan was to show how many times you can get hit and stay standing, it's going marvelously, said Marcus. Have you ever wondered why they call the square boxing mat a ring? Anthony mused. That's not top of mind, no. What's your plan for dealing with Zed? He's going to be pissed you've made it to a 3rd round. How are you going to stop him from killing you now? He swings hard, I'll give him that, Anthony admitted. I'll just have to swing smarter. What? Pavlov, my dear brother, Pavlov. What the hell does that mean? Exactly. Anthony smiled as he bounced his way back to the center of the fight floor. Zed and Anthony stood facing each other for the final time. Rage seethed from the champ's face as he extended an arm. Anthony kept bouncing in place, tapping hands before dropping to the floor and delivering an L kick that finally destroyed the thigh nerve Zed had previously protected. The champ stumbled but didn't fall, delivering a barrage of strikes to Anthony's whole body. Anthony pivoted away from Zed and returned to his earlier approach of throwing leg strikes over and over. The crushed nerve was making it hard for Zed to respond to the attacks because it meant placing all his weight on the destroyed leg. Anthony kicked at the other leg, but before the champ could place his functional foot forward, Anthony swept it, sending Zed off balance head first, a moment Anthony exploited by delivering a knee to the champ's undefended face.
Anthony had been fighting a war of attrition, holding out for a single advantage which Zed just gave him. Fights usually end with one person balled up on the ground, arms covering their face while their opponent strikes without opposition. But this was an exception. Zed had been knocked out cold. The club was silent. There was a new champion of Nereo. Anthony stood alone in the ring, extending his arm like a Roman emperor to the stunned crowd, giving the thumbs up. He planned to be a merciful ruler.
"Victory, Anthony Adams by knockout,"
Heidi's voice said over the tail end of Anthony's fight song. For the first time that night, even the peanut gallery was speechless. As he faced Marcus, it was clear this had bordered on a Pyrrhic victory. Anthony was covered in blood and sweat. Marcus offered a hand, but Anthony refused. "I have to see me do this myself." Anthony moved through the whispering spectators to the Champions Lounge where Heidi was waiting.
"An impressive show. Absolutely brilliant. Would you like me to keep your name in the fight pool for the evening?"
"No, please." Anthony didn't have anything left.
"Very well," Heidi said enthusiastically. "Your float was 21, which brings your winnings to 210 million. Would you like to convert that to crypto or open a house account?"
"A crypto card would be great," Anthony said.
"Of course. Will you both be staying to dance?"
"Yes," Anthony insisted before turning to Marcus. "Go have fun. I need to piece myself back together. It'll take a while. I'll find you when I'm ready." "Are you sure you want to be alone?" Marcus asked. "I'm standing, so I'm fine. Seriously, go find Mrs. Adams."
"Right then," said Heidi. "I'll be back with your crypto card shortly. In the meantime, do enjoy everything Nereo has to offer."